In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace your strut mount on your Mini Cooper. It's located on your strut. Using a 17mm socket, we're going to remove our wheel. Let's remove our wheel. Using a 17mm socket, we're going to remove this nut on our top sway bar link. It may spin, and if it does, I'll hold it with some locking pliers, but we're going to try without. Sometimes you get lucky. We at least loosened it, so now I'm going to hold it still on the back side. If you are not replacing your sway bar link, then you want to be careful not to puncture the boot. Remove the nut. Sometimes you do have to heat these up and burn them off. If yours is stuck and won't come off, that's what you're going to have to do. We can release our locking pliers. And now we're going to pull our sway bar link out and continue on to our strut. We're going to remove this out of the bracket. This is our ABS sensor. I'm just going to use a pry bar, gently push it out, and we're also going to remove our brake hose out of there. Same way, use a pry bar and push that out. I'm going to remove it from here too, just to give me a little bit more slack. I don't have to worry about it. I'll set that off to the side. Next, we're going to go for this bolt in the back and just get it out. Before beginning, you are going to want to turn your wheel out so the caliper is facing all the way to the left. Then you're going to bang down on the knuckle, and that should allow enough clearance to get the strut out. Using an 18mm socket, we're going to remove this bolt. So now we've taken our bolt out in the back, and we're going to hammer this down. And you are going to try to wiggle this out. You might need a pry bar just to push down on that control arm a little bit more. And watch out for your hose. And we're just going to put that there for now. Your tie rod should hold your knuckle in enough to keep this from pulling out of the transmission. Now we're going to remove our nuts on the top here. I'm just going to take out two for now. And for this last one, you want to make sure you got a good hand on your strut. Now I'm going to pull this out, the same direction it's already tilted. So we have our strut set up in a spring compressor. You're going to need this to do this job, something like this anyways, to hold the spring still. We're going to try to get this loose and see if the center spins. To do that, I'm using a 19mm strut socket. I'm just going to give it a couple of turns and see if it spins. The center. I'm going to try to get this loose. Don't take it all the way off yet. So that looks good. So now we're going to compress our spring. You want to use extreme caution when doing anything with struts. These springs are they hold a lot of energy. You're going to do this till the strut itself is free from the spring and all tension. That looks pretty good. I'll go a little bit more. So now you know your spring is stable. You're gonna take the nut off the rest of the way. Hopefully it just comes off without a whole lot of effort. If not, we're gonna hold that center still with a 6mm Allen wrench. Looks like we got lucky. I do want to demonstrate just in case you don't get lucky. Just gonna put this on a little bit. So you would hold this still with your Allen wrench or a socket, and then by hand remove this nut. But we don't have to do that. So remove your nut. Now you can take this off. We're going to clean this up, make sure it's got a good surface. We don't want any remnants of what was. Make sure it's nice and clean. Place your mount on top. And let's thread this on by hand at first. Make sure it's not cross-threaded. Make sure you replace your nut as well. So let's tighten this down. Make sure that you hold your strut still. When you decompress the spring, it will sit properly in the strut, so don't let that move. And just tighten this by hand. And if you need to, you can hold the center still with this Allen wrench. Is another way of doing it. We're going to torque this to 47 foot-pounds. So once you feel snug, you're going to get your torque wrench. Before torquing, sometimes it's easier to let that spring hold your strut in place. Make sure it's really tight before doing this. And you just want it to rest in there without any tension, and that'll hold everything together. That might be good. And you're going to torque this to 47 foot-pounds. Now we can remove our strut from the machine, check it out, make sure everything's lined up where it should be. And we're good to go. Let's install. So when we install our strut, we're going to put it in this way. We're also going to line this piece up with this slot right here. Once you put the strut in or close to where it's going to be, you're going to be able to spin this where you need it. And that direction is the long side with the one stud faces the front. So you're going to put it up in, get it to where it was before you took it out completely. And now we're going to line up the top and here. So the easiest way to get this in is to line up this stud right here. This one right here. Get it in the hole and then line it up with the knuckle underneath. You're going to have to push down a little bit on the knuckle and slide it in. Once you get it that close, you're going to make sure your other studs line up at least a little bit in the ballpark. And then you're going to tilt your knuckle up and push the strut in. Make sure you don't pinch your fingers or your hand as you're doing that, so go above where the knuckle is going to sit. So once you make sure everything's lined up, including your mount on the top, you're going to give this a tap. Once you get your studs up in there, you're going to apply more pressure. You can get a nut started. And get another one started. Now we're going to put our other nut on. We're going to snug these up. And that's going to bring your strut up for you. And now we can push it onto the knuckle. All right, so now here we are. We're getting our strut in the knuckle. You may have to move it around a little bit. I put a little penetrating oil to help ease installation. If you're having a hard time getting the strut in, feel free to jack up your control arm and help put pressure on it, and then you can hammer it in that way. In order to get the strut into the knuckle, you have to make sure that this piece of the frame is right between this bracket and your hose bracket. Once you have that right there, you can push it in, and then we can spin the strut where it needs to be. All right, once you get it started, you can just persuade it with some pry bar and a hammer until you get it all the way through. Make sure that you're moving this now. You got to spin it so it lines up with that slot in the back, this bracket and this slot. And just get a rough estimate of where that is. And now we're going to put the strut in the rest of the way. I'm going to use a jack to push up on the lower control arm. You might have to tap that knuckle a few different ways in order for it to slide in. Like that. And you may have to turn it again if you're not quite lined up enough. Just be careful you don't pinch your finger. Once it's lined up, you can continue jacking it up or whatever you're using to pull up on that control arm. Now I'm just going to make sure that that bolt is free to go in using a punch. Looks like it clears. So we're going to put that bolt in. I am going to keep my jack there in case I got to adjust anything. I'm going to use a manual ratchet just to make sure that this is all lined up and it's threaded in right. I can see that the bolt is threaded in. Let's tighten this up. Now we're going to torque this to 60 foot-pounds. We're going to torque these to 25 foot-pounds. Go around one more time just to make sure. Now we're lowering the jack and getting it out of the way. So now we're going to put our hose back where it belongs, slide it into its bracket, and we're going to feed our speed sensor and wear indicator wire back where that goes. You may have to put a little silicone paste for things to fit. Make sure everything's secure. We're going to line up the sway bar link now in the back bracket. You may have to pry down on your sway bar link bar. And start the nut. Let's tighten that up and torque it. I'm going to torque that to 41 foot-pounds. Put our wheel on. Make sure you line it up. Once you're lined up, you can get one of your lug nut studs started. You are going to have to keep a hand on it. And continue the way around. Let's tighten it up. We're going to do it in a crisscross manner. Walk the wheel up. Make sure it's flush. We're going to torque our wheels to 95 foot-pounds. I'm using a 17 millimeter socket. We're going to do this in a crisscross pattern.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.